Your journey has been an interesting one up to here. You've questioned so much more than those around you. You've even questioned yourself as to how you could have grown into these thoughts. Am I crazy? When did I begin to think differently? Why do people in general appear so limited in their thought process? Rest assured, you are not alone. The world is slowly waking up to what you already know inside, yet can't quite verbalize. Welcome to the Spiritual Dope Podcast, the show that answers the questions you never even knew to ask, but needed the answers to. Questions about you, this world, the people in it. Most importantly, how do I proceed now moving forward? We don't claim to have all the answers, but we sure do love living in the question. Time for another hit of Spiritual Dope with your host, Brandon Henley. Let's get right into today's episode.
Hey there, Spiritual Dope. I'm on here today with Zane Landin. He is the founder and chief executive officer of Positive Vibes magazine, where he sought to provide a space for people having a hard time dealing with mental health problems, experiencing being lonely, and feeling overwhelmed by the pandemic. Zane is currently an undergraduate at Cal Poly Pomona in California. Spring of 2020, he was taking a copy editing class, and their final assignment was to develop their own publication. Zane decided that a publication dedicated to positivity would be best suited during the pandemic. He was inspired by the message and decided to embrace the idea. The magazine became a small Instagram began with a small Instagram account in late May to now an international digital magazine reaching thousands of people looking for hope during these times. The digital magazine has interviewed artists, psychics, mediums, yoga experts, models, chefs, etc. And you believe in empowering and sharing powerful storytelling. You want to share the hidden gems in societies. Zane, thanks for stopping by today. How you doing?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to be here.
So we connected. I believe we connected just kind of doing a little bit of back and forth outreach through Instagram. And we had some good conversations, and just decided to try and have you on the podcast. And I'm glad that I think it's been probably about 8 months, I think, since we first connected.
Yeah.
So lots going on. Pandemic, hopefully coming out of its whatever it's doing, and here we go. We get into it. So I usually like to start these off with the whole idea that you, myself, are just kind of conduits for universal energy, right? We're just here to like express kind of whatever we're sent here for. Had one guy who was on, really enjoyed what he said too. He's like, Earth. What did he say? He goes, Earth's not our home. It's our mission, right? And that was his expression. But the idea is that whatever comes through you today is going to be for a listener on the other end today, Zane. And what is it that you feel like Source is sending through you today?
I feel the sources sending through me today would be grateful for what you have. And I think that's something that we preach a lot, but we don't practice ourselves, and that we're always wanting more, especially in society that's always about things and rewards. Sometimes it's always nice to see that the real rewards are yourself and what you're grounded in, your family, things around you. Even just listening to what's outside. There's a book about, how we don't really listen, and we don't really listen to the earth or what it's saying to us. Even when you go outside, you're always bombarded with all this noise or traffic or everything. But when you kind of stop, you can really hear everything. And you feel like at one, and you feel like that stillness. And so I think that really kind of goes into what I'm trying to say about like gratitude and just being grateful for everything you have. And I understand that people are in really, really hard situations, but I think like finding that one thing that keeps you going and one thing that's positive, I think hopefully can really help you a lot. I hope all that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's there's this constant drive, I think, that society's put onto us to just go out there, and then go get more and more. Right. All right. So you've gotten this thing. Congratulations. You're not done yet. Now you got to go collect the other, like Pokemon. You got to get them all. Right. And if you don't get them all, then something's missing from your collection and your life's not complete. Whereas a little bit of what you're saying here is, hey, like, be grateful for the things that you've got. Take a moment, which is even just yourself. You're saying, right? Like, just be grateful for you. I always talk about the whole idea of we have 1 in 400 trillion chances of being born. Right? What are the odds, man? That's so be grateful that you have like this chance of even just showing up and participating in this world with us today.
No, yeah, no, I definitely agree. And we even like shared something today on like our the magazine's Instagram about just celebrating the small victories that you have in your life. Like especially when you see like success stories, and you're always like, oh, they went from 0 to 100. You just see the 100. We really don't like to talk about this, the between the spectrum of 0 to 100. Of course, it's in books and stuff, but like, I wish people would really talk about how much they really struggled, especially when you see successful people. I don't think a lot of them just, well, I bet you there are some that have had things handed to them, but I think a lot of people have really had these powerful stories, and that kind of goes into the magazine. That's what we want to share. If someone is down in the dumps or they're really depressed and they feel that they can't amount to anything, hearing someone who may even have a worse situation than them, now they're very successful, seeing that I think is really inspiring. And that's kind of like what we want. That's what we're all about. So that's why we interview so many different people, because so many people come from different walks of life, of course, and like they all have such different inputs and different perspectives. And I think that's such a cool thing to see, and something we don't see. We kind of see the same type of people in the mainstream media, and so I'm always trying to like find those diverse stories. If it's being a chef, or if it's being something extraordinary, or if it's just someone who is doing something in their local community, anything like that. It's stuff we tend not to see, and it's not really highlighted in the mainstream media. So that's something I try to challenge.
I think that's pretty great that you're doing it, and I love that you're doing it at a younger age where um, you're just kind of. And I was telling my wife a little bit about the story of just how you gravitated towards creating this magazine, and the thing it's been fairly successful for you. And the idea is that it's kind of like you've never done it before, and you just went ahead and did it. You opened yourself up to it, and you opened yourself up to do it in a positive way, just the way that you're saying, right? I would say that you're doing it with care, with kindness and consideration, compassion, and all those things, right? Like you said, with opening it to a diverse spectrum of people to be on and share their stories, mining for those gems, as you're saying, and it's just working for you, right? Like the universe has kind of opened up for you and accepted you. Yeah, hey, you want to do this, and since you've never tried it before, right? You don't know what you're not supposed to do, and you're just doing it in a way that is expressive of yourself, right? That's in alignment with who you are, instead of kind of going through this factory of here's how it's supposed to be. Okay, you've met all the criteria, you've done all the right things, and congratulations, you're a success. But that's almost like a cookie cutter model, and you're doing it without that cookie cutter model, and that's what I think is really for me exciting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I I was actually never really the biggest fan of magazines either, because the ones I saw are always like the celebrity ones, which I was never super interested in. So I was like, how would I even do something like this? And so I was like, you know what? I'll just run it like just an online thing. It's a website, the content's there, and I love just putting out features, and that's where it started. I didn't, like I said, I don't know what I didn't know, and I think that was better. I think because like I just started like a new position, and they told me that look at the content on the website, and come at it from an objective standpoint. So it's good that you're here because you're like a member of the public. I'm not biased. So I think that actually helped. I didn't know too much about the industry. So it wasn't, I had to do things a certain way. So I think it's actually better sometimes when you, like you said, you don't know anything and you're just coming in as like just someone who's ready to soak everything up. And that was like the whole point. And kind of letting the universe guide you. And what's really cool about this podcast, was how I just happened to stumble upon you. It's so fascinating how like I just was going through Instagrams, going through rabbit holes, and then I stumbled upon you, and then we just connected. Now that I think is great, and again, what's so interesting about when you start something or when you open yourself up, those experiences are never ever going to happen then. Because if I didn't start it, I was never going to meet you, or half the people I have met through the magazine, or actually half, all of them basically, because I probably haven't met any of them without it. And so, I think what you're saying is like when you said before about just being present, I think like being open to like any opportunity, I think it's so exciting. Who you are now and who you could be tomorrow is so different. But don't be I wouldn't be scared of it. I think it can be very exciting as long as you keep leading your life in a good positive way and you're a good person. I don't know, it's fine. I think it'll be fine. I mean, I'm not going to downplay when really hard things happen to people. I mean, I understand that. But I mean, if you have the feasibility and you have an idea, just go for it. I don't know. I mean, I know that like the magazine didn't take a lot of money. Like it wasn't a lot of money to do this. And I know that some people's ideas are huge and have a lot of money. But I think just start off small, just you have the idea, talk to someone who's done it, or even just start it and see where it goes. And so it's weird how like universe kind of like finagled its way in and like took me on a path I never thought I'd be on. So it's really exciting, and I'm sure you can even speak on that too with the podcast.
Well, yeah, no, for sure. It's just like this, and I guess that's where my point of view really comes from is stepping into one piece and doing it in a way that I thought it was supposed to be done with my first podcast, and then I was like, did a little bit of a shift. I did a second podcast, and it was a little bit more in alignment with who I was, and then finally I was like, I got to this one and it's just basically kicked the doors open. I was like, this is it, man. This is in alignment with who I am, and I'm not going to go search what everybody else is doing and doing it in this kind of the same way. I'm not gonna leverage a bunch of like scare tactics and like scarcity mindset stuff. Which is just like, I know it all works, but it's just not, it doesn't feel good, right? It doesn't feel good to kind of put out there knowing that uh, a lot of the marketing that's being done is a psychological trick, really, right? And it's like, well, that's, I feel like Spider-Man in that sense, with I've got a powerful force and you have to be, use it responsibly. And so let's talk a little bit about too, like, how have you gone about, let's talk a little bit about Positive Vibes Magazine. What can somebody expect to find when they go there? And you mentioned a few of the different types of people, like mediums, psychics, to chefs on there. Let's talk about what's criteria and some of the people that have blown your mind that weren't anything like you had expected them to be.
Wow. Well, I feel like when you go onto the website and just I would just say definitely read our content with an open mind because again they're very different perspectives. What I think is so cool is when you go on the website, there I know that there's like a theme, like we talked about mental health, and that is the theme. That was like the inspiration behind it, but it's definitely gone into so many different places that it's not necessarily the theme anymore. It's just about spreading, positivity. And we try to always ask questions about mental health, but sometimes it just doesn't come up. Sometimes the natural conversation doesn't just go that way. And so I think what you're going to see is, stories of positive transformations, inspiration, people who have really experienced some really hard stuff. I mean, I remember we interviewed a celebrity stylist, and you know she's just doing her thing with fashion, and then reading the story because I didn't write it. One of my writers wrote and interviewed her. She was like part of previously part of gangs, and so for her to come out of that and transform herself, and then one of the most meaningful conversations I had was with a medium, and the interview was just so powerful because of what she's experienced, and we really talked about mental health because she actually talked about suicide a lot, and the stuff that she had to go through with her family and her son. There's a lot of different things. um, I just feel it from people. Like when I do these interviews, I feel the energy from them. I feel, I sometimes it's more than others, but I definitely can experience, like, I feel their pain, and that's where I feel like I even learn the most. Like I remember I remember in school right now we have to do a lot of reading, but I'm like, I wish I could just interview someone, like interview an expert for an hour, because that would be where I would learn the most. So I have learned so much from these people because, again, so many different walks of life, and they each hold such different like philosophies and things they say to themselves and mantras and how they navigate the world. Some of them have such self doubts before and still, and then some people have the most amazing confidence, and it's just so different. And I love how they all just make it work. It's their journey, their truth, and I love just amplifying it.
For sure. I think one of the coolest things is being able to amplify it, right? You've got the power of the internet right there at your fingertips, and anything that you send out there it has it has the true capability of being able to hit, like, I don't know what, billions of people, right? Like if you know, you could hit everybody with your voice, with your magazine, you have the potential to hit billions of people. Well, where else can you do that? I mean, how else could you amplify anything like that? So I think that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I know what I love about, I wasn't there when it wasn't like this, but what I do love about, nowadays is that media is so democratized to the point where like you can get content from anywhere. Not like before, where like I feel like content and like stuff that was available was stuff that was coming from the LA Times or these big newspapers or these big television shows. But now you see like all these types of people having television shows. You have all these people doing streaming. You have all these people doing podcasts, and so it's like it's great that people can bring value to others and people can like create and build their own communities. And in a good way, and they can foster those communities, and they can just create something special. I love that technology and social media and all these different things have changed that.
Yeah, it's no longer the three stations as
Yeah.
in way back in the day. And anybody's invited to participate. Anybody's invited to create their audience. Anybody's invited to share what's on their mind.
Hmm.
And through all the different mediums, you got the podcast, you've got video, and writing, blogs. I mean, any way that you feel like you need to express yourself, it can be done. And I love that that's what you're doing too. You're not only expressing yourself, you're bringing other people on to express themselves, and you built a true community platform. What's some of the feedback during COVID that you've heard from creating this platform? Are you having the positive impact that you'd expected to have, or you want to have? What's some of the stuff that people are saying back to you?
Here's the thing. I don't know. I don't see the impact myself. That's the thing. Like I don't. I'll have people say they read something and they loved it, but it wasn't the amount I thought I would. But then I'll have some people I interview, and then we'll connect again months later, and they said, "You have no idea how much this has impacted me." And the people who actually read my story and they read more, so I don't actually know, which I think is great because when I do hear it, I'm like, okay, wow, we're actually doing something right. And I remember to hold on to those conversations, and because it is hard. It is kind of hard to just kind of go to a platform and just say this was so great. I think that's hard for some people. That's hard for me. Like if I mean, people I watch, content I read, I don't really say I love it. Like I don't go on and comment that. I know that sounds really weird, but I just kind of don't. I just appreciate it for what it is. So I don't get the comments. But no, when I do get some, it's always so great because like my whole thing is about if I can just really if I could impact, well, it's not really me, but if the people in the magazine could inspire that one person and changes their entire life, that's where I think is the most worth it. And I think the people who are most impacted, you probably never hear about them, and I think that's great because I don't need I don't need to hear about them. As long as they're as long as they're taking away from the magazine or the stuff we put on social media, that's all that's important to me. So I may never know.
And I think that that's okay. It's really, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. I think we all like to get, you definitely like to get validated, right? You'd like to hear that, something's working out. You're like, all right, that's fantastic. And just like you said, we're doing something right. And so it's great to hear some of those stories, but it's also really great to hear that you're not attached to that specific outcome to have to continue to move forward, right? For you, sounds like the momentum and the driver is really kind of internal and not necessarily external.
Yeah. No, yeah, I just they always say you're supposed to remind yourself of your why. And that's what I kind of constantly do. Sometimes I feel like it's, oh, I'm so busy, I can't do this right now, or I'm like, okay, no, I need to buckle down and do this because the why was, to help people who are experiencing loss and just rough times during the pandemic. I know we're like in this weird phase of pandemic and not pandemic, even though we kind of still are, but it doesn't matter at this point because even though that was inspiration, there's always hard times going on and there's always inspiration happening. So magazine won't stop after the pandemic. That'll just be why that will be like our like historic moment of why we started it, and we'll always kind of remember it. But it is really interesting how it started from the pandemic, and we're kind of going into this place where it's not the pandemic as much as it was before, and it's kind of interesting to actually go out and tell people about the magazine, because it's like before it was like just online, everything was online, the world was online. So now when I go around and I tell people, it's pretty interesting, what people have to say. So it is really exciting, the like kind of like transition phase we're in.
Yeah, we're definitely in an awkward kind of space in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and it's pretty neat to hear that you're going to basically you're continuing it, and it's really a continuation of you initiated something, and it's kind of like just where you stuck your flag in the moon, basically, right? This is hey guys, this is where we stuck our flag in the moon, and this is where it started. This is the origin point, and as you continue forward and you continue to have these positive impacts, you continue to have these great conversations coming on, these articles that you continue to produce. Where do you see it going for you?
Um, I'm not sure. I always get questions like this, and I wish I had a better answer. But it's kind of like when we first started and we kind of just let it go, take its path. I feel like I'm still doing that and seeing like who reaches out, who's gonna come, like what's gonna be the next experience. It's uncertain, but it's exciting. My only goal is I just want it to keep growing. I want to share more stories, in whatever way we can. We're always trying new things. We did a podcast for a little bit, haven't done an episode for a while, but we're always cranking out the written content. And then I occasionally will do like Instagram lives. I'll interview someone. I think we've done like 8 or 10 so far. So we try and provide different content, so it's not just written, because I know that not everyone is a fan of reading. And so some people, again, right, people are a fan of podcasts or Instagram live, whatever it is, as long as we're always regurgitating the positivity in people's lives. That's all that matters. That's all. I'm trying to think of, my dream really is to actually have like a positive news channel, and that's it. That's all I would want is I don't know, 1 hour, 2 hour segment on just sharing the positive news. And I know local news stations do that. I just wish there was a place where it's just dedicated to that, and it's even talking about positive international news, not even just like United States news. We're talking about kids in different countries, or all these things where people are really making huge impact. And actually having an interview with them or something like that. That would be so cool. That would be my
Right.
dream for sure.
Now that'd be awesome for sure. I think that's a great vision. And I think that as long as you kind of keep going in the same direction and just keep it up, right? It's just really just a matter of time, so long as you keep it going. Um, what would you say is some of the stuff that like you've really some big takeaways from some of the interviews that you've had?
Oh. It's so hard. I think that I think one of the things I've learned the most, I feel like it's something I realized before, but hearing all the stories all the time, it really kind of reinforces it. Is that you know just treat people right, because every single person has such a powerful story to tell. Everyone, I mean, it's amazing what some people go through an experience, they just don't want to share it, and that's fine. But it's like sometimes when you talk to someone, and if it's just a random stranger, and then you hear this amazing story for an hour, it's like that is amazing. And so that's what I hear, is that we're all equals. Yeah, we may be treated way differently in society, but back to kind of what I said at the beginning, grounded in our community, like we're all supposed to be here for each other. We're all part of the earth. We're all sharing the space. We just don't act like we are. And so I think that that's something I would take away, is that, and you don't know what people have gone through, and so always trying to be empathetic as much as you can. And I'm saying empathetic like it's a skill. I mean, it kind of is. I think you can practice it. I think you can really tune into it. To really feel what people are experiencing. And so that's like the one main takeaway I would take from all these interviews, is that everyone really has something to share, and I think that we should be encouraging that a lot more.
Right. It's the idea I think that you talked about at the beginning was people don't listen so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of listening, um, and even trying to take that time to listen to the other story, right? I mean, engaging in somebody else's life to hear their story. I mean, who's got time for that, right? So, and you're making some time for that though, and I think that when you give the other people an opportunity to truly be heard, to share the truth of their story and not always in this markety way, right? Like, well, what's your brand, Zane? Can you tell me what your brand is, and who's your ideal persona, and all this other stuff, and a lot of times, while that's good to have clarity on all that, like, but who are you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
why should we talk, right? Um, when what how much I think you've gone through some rough times recently,
Mm-hmm.
right? Having access to this platform for yourself and having an outlet, I mean, how's that helped you? Has that been beneficial?
Oh yeah. So happy you asked this. So yeah, so in January, um, my mom passed away, and so it was a huge shock. None of us were expecting it, which I think was better because I wouldn't have wanted to know if that makes any sense, and I don't think my mom would have wanted to know it. I think it would have been too traumatic to know that she would be leaving us. That's her perspective. I don't think she did, but she would think I'm leaving my family, and I think some people can have some guilt from that, and so it helps so much because even I think even like a couple days after I was working on the magazine, and I know like people were like, well, why am I working? It's helpful, and what really helped me throughout the time was just being super busy, but I really had the time to reflect on the stories, and then even just going back to like who I've talked to, even with that medium I talked to, which happened like last year. And so when my mom died, it was probably like 6, 7 months when I did the interview. And so like hearing them again talk about mediumship, and I'm like, personally, I don't know if this is real. I don't know. I haven't experienced it, but it's not my place to judge or assume they're wrong or right. I'm just here with an open mind, and when I hear it, you know, I think about it. And so when I hear about a bunch of different mediums out there and who shares these experiences and what they feel, it definitely brings me comfort. Because it's pretty interesting. I was kind of always interested in spirituality. Um, like a lot of people in my family are around tarot and meditation and all that stuff. I know that's like the cliche spirituality stuff, but it's still really cool to be around it. Even when I was young, I think I was like 14, and I was around that, and I didn't want to dabble into it. It wasn't because I was like fear of the devil. I know that people say that. No, it was really because um, I just didn't think it was for me, and I wanted to do it when it spoke more to me, and so that kind of happened. And so with the magazine, kind of drifted me in this path of spirituality and really thinking about things differently. And then even um, my birthday was in January as well, and my sister gave me an oracle deck, and I use it from time to time. I'm not hugely into it where I like study it, but I just flip the cards and read what it says, and it's eerily accurate. And even if I don't feel that way, there's something there. I think that's important. The most important thing is that even if we get a tarot reading or oracle reading and we feel that that's I don't understand this message, maybe it's not the time for it then, or maybe you just need to look at something differently, and maybe you'll see the message. That's why I find really great about oracle is even if the message isn't clear, it makes you think differently and think like, oh, I got this message. I don't understand what it means, but maybe I should tap into this, like whatever it is that wants me to. um, so I think that's the one thing that's helped a lot was the magazine. I feel like yeah, without the magazine, I'd probably be really struggling a lot more than I have. Um, but it's given me a lot of hope, you know, and sometimes I think of like it should be like Hope Vibes magazine or even Peaceful Vibes because like sometimes I think some people have questioned me and said like how is the magazine about positivity when you have a story about someone who used to be in a gang or something, like that's like people say that, and I'm always like hmm Well, I think because you're looking at positivity as happiness, and they're very, very different. Happiness is just like that emotional feeling you get, and I think it's temporary. I think positivity is like a philosophy, like a way of life, and that no matter what happens, you know that things will be okay, or you know that there's a different place for you, or something's coming up and you don't know. I think that's better than being happy because, again, happiness is just kind of a feeling. And so I think philosophy is what drives me, in that no matter what I do, I'm going to try my best to be positive. And of course, it's harder on different days, but like that's the one thing, like my mom, she didn't necessarily teach me like being positive, like not like that, but she was always so positive. And she always said, if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say it. Don't like hurt someone. And also, she always had such compliments to say about anyone. Like, she always kind of like lit up a room, no matter what room she was in. Even if it was the darkest room, she was definitely the brightest light. And yeah, my mom just had really great charisma, and I try my best so she can live through me, if that makes sense. And so, but yeah, but thanks for bringing that up. It's great to talk about, because even though you know death is always around us, I feel like there's still like this stigma to talk about death, because I can imagine why it's incredibly difficult. And there's a lot of people that don't believe there's anything else out there. I definitely believe there is, but I'm always getting judgment and self doubt about it, as normal, because we don't know what we don't know yet. So we never probably will know until we reach that conclusion or new beginning, whatever it is, whatever death is to some people. It's just pretty interesting what it is to some people. Um, but yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
For sure. So it sounds like having this as an outlet and a space, and where you can refer to, where you can have those conversations, where you're surrounded by uh, positive people, not necessarily just positive people, but these different ways forward. And I get what you're saying, in the idea of, so you had some, gangsters on, but it's like the idea of, this is where they were, and this has been their path forward, and this is, there's I think of, geez, what is it, one of the Toy Story minis, right? Combat Carl or Jesse. Jesse always finds a way. I don't know if you ever saw those. Jesse always finds a way. Um, there's always a way forward, right? And sometimes the those ways forward aren't glamorous. When you think about maybe the gangster, and then, they're living the gang life. Maybe for that person, that's it, who's looking from the outside, says, "Oh, that's terrible. Nobody should ever have to go through." But maybe that's what that person needed in order to give them the inspiration to go become the person that they end up becoming.
Yeah.
And for you, you've been able to have people like that around you who've gone through some of these tough times, through some of these challenging times, and have shown you that kind of, no matter where you're at and where you've been, there's a way you can go forward. And I love the idea that, about your mom being, the brightest light, and you trying to carry that forward. I think that's awesome, man. I really appreciate hearing that.
Yeah, and then also part of the why of the magazine was my mom was always obviously the biggest fan of it, and so you know um, doing it, I constantly remind myself to do it for her as well, because she would be super proud to see it. Um, or she is. I mean, I try to think of her, not to say they would have, they do. I like thinking of it that way. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited. And also to go back to your question about the magazine, I don't know what's going to happen in the future with the magazine, but I did reflect like a long time ago, and I said, if the magazine discontinues one day, knock on wood, if that does happen, I think that's fine, because I created a brand, I created a space for people, and it's a memory, and it's still something I believe in. And I'm always going to be impacted by those stories. Um, but that's like that's definitely like hopefully the worst outcome. I would never want that to happen, but again, we never know what's going to happen. But what's that quote? Don't be sad it happened, be happy it happened. Wait, no, don't be sad it's over, be happy it happened. I like that, because
For sure.
no, and that's hard, for people. It's easy to kind of be sad. Um, I think it's easier to be sad than it is to be happy. You got to put a lot of effort into being happy, to be honest. um, and but I like the idea that be so happy that it happened and just keep living as if it's still there, or keep living as if the person's still there, and always carry on their legacy or whatever it is you can do to keep them alive, metaphorically. Um, Even though they are, in a way, still alive somewhere else. I know it sounds like I keep contradicting myself saying that, but yeah, that's what I would say.
What has there been like anybody that has tried to, I don't know, offer you payment? Have you guys gotten any sponsorship? What's that look like for you? And are you guys seeking any?
I never thought about it. Uh, we've had like some people reach out, but not about sponsorship, like money, but they would send us some products and we would post about them. That's always so fun. Um, I know that some people have reached out. Someone reached out about being featured, and they wanted to like pay us to be featured, which sounds it's probably like the only time I would ever be paid for it, um, so far. And so I'm trying to figure out ways to monetize it and make some money from it, and be able to pay the people helping me, because we have like students helping, and they're like interns and they get the experience, but I would love to pay them one day, and just create more things. I'd love to have like a guidebook. Oh, that'd be so cool. Like I feel like that's the thing now. Like so many people would create guidebooks, and like a positivity guidebook would be so fun. And so that would definitely be something to consider in the future. But again, that's like kind of like going on your question. Like, I definitely want the magazine to bridge off into other things where it's not just online content. But what if it's like a book that you can use, like a journal? I feel like I see so many people doing that. They're always like, "Oh, I created my own course, my own guidebook." I see so many people doing that. So like, I think it's so exciting. It's like if they can do it, maybe we can too. So there's so many things to consider, and what's kind of trending and what people are liking and what's really helping people. So there's always so much to consider when it comes to stuff like this, which I'm sure you are aware of.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I think that it's great that you're looking. The monetization is, I think, obviously it's great to get paid for it. I think it's kind of funny, right? That somebody wants to be paid to be featured, which is
Yeah.
always interesting too, right?
Yeah.
Pay to play. Um, well, let me ask you just so I get to this little spot in the podcast where I like to call it like spiritual speed dating, Zane. And so you have you kind of found your spirituality, you're finding your spirituality through what you're doing right now, and I think that's great. Again, I think that it's cool that you're doing it at such a young age where you're really leaning into it. You're asking yourself some questions where I know for me, it took me a long time before I even started asking myself some questions. It was just kind of straight and forward, and well, a lot of bouncing around and some other funky stuff happened. But in the end, I kind of landed pretty smack dab in the middle of spirituality and started asking some of these questions that you're asking yourself at this younger age. But how about spiritual speed dating, bachelor number one? Ooh, we talked a little bit about depression. Why are so many people depressed?
Um, why are so many people depressed? I think there's definitely so many different answers. I feel like the reason why people are more depressed now is not just the deaths, but I feel like what gets people down is experiencing themselves. And so what I mean is people have had to people really had to sit with themselves and really think about things. I feel like we didn't do that. I feel like, we were always moving. Like we talked about this at the beginning, like we're always moving and trying to get more, or things are just always changing. But I feel like with COVID, people kind of just were stuck. I feel like that kind of got people depressed because they had to really think about their life and what they bring to the world. Because imagine seeing so many people dying. Especially since I couldn't really relate to the dying thing. Just I mean that just because like I'm young and I was like I don't think I'm gonna catch COVID and die from it. But I can imagine someone who's in like their who's middle age can be like, oh my gosh, I'm actually like high risk for COVID, and so I have to really think about what have I done with my life. What can I do differently? And that is why you see so many platforms and podcasts and things being made during the pandemic, because people have just shifted. And so I think that's one of the things that's made people really depressed. I think that there's just so many pressures now. I feel like, especially with technology and the media, I feel like that people have such stress to be and act a certain way, and everyone's lives are blasted online. And as much as I love social media and technology, it does have some bad effects. And so, and there's so many different things, and I feel like it's such like I feel like it's such a big question. But I think recently now, I think some of those are some of the reasons why people are depressed. Um, yeah, I really think so.
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely fair. So many people hadn't really sat with themselves, and being locked down caused you to really just kind of do this introspection. What have I done with my life? What am I going to do with my life? Is what I'm doing with my life, kind of, is this my life's purpose? What should I be doing? All kinds of those things. I think that you're right. I think that's a great answer. Well, Zane, where can people? We've been talking about this, magazine. We've been talking about you and all the things that you're doing. Where can people go and find out more about you?
Yes. So, one word, positivevibesmag.com. That's the website, as well as all of our social media channels. Um, except for LinkedIn and YouTube is Positive Vibes Magazine, but the rest is Positive Vibes Mag. You can find us on Instagram, the website, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. But we're very active on Instagram as our main platform. And we just try to post things every other day, and we try and bring value to the postings. We'll explore different topics. I think one of them was detachment, which I thought was very interesting because like some people think detachment is toxic. Detaching yourself from someone. Oh, you're being toxic, you're running away. I don't like when people say that, because it's like you're running away from your problems. Well, maybe some people just need to detach from their problems. Even if it's not their doing, like what if they're in this situation where it's like a new environment could actually drastically shake them or shift, so they're actually in a better mindset, so they can make better decisions, so they can live a better life. And so, we try and talk about that. We did a post about experiencing loss, that it's going to happen to everyone. But as long as we can be there for one another and openly talk about loss, I think it will help people more, especially when it's such a shock for some people, including me. But like, if I knew more people that it happened to, actually, I like I said, I feel like everyone's gonna have to experience it. I just wish we would talk about it more. So I know I went on a little tangent, but anyways, so those are the places you can definitely find us.
Absolutely, Zane. No, thanks for sharing. I think that's huge, right? People, when they're experiencing loss, they don't necessarily know some of the best ways to express it, go through it. Who can they turn to? And without some type of reference material, like you're talking about, without being able to go to another place that has been sharing it and having these conversations openly the way that you have, I think that it makes it a real challenge because, especially as men in Western civilization, we're supposed to, kind of stuff all of our emotions down, and loss is one of those things that we're supposed to kind of stuff down. People come, people go, and we beat on our chest and carry on. So I don't think that that's always the way. Sometimes we're truly impacted, and we should be allowed to be impacted. We should be allowed to feel those feelings and sit with them for a minute. And especially, I mean, if we think about the loss of your mother, or my mother's, still around when she goes, it's going to be like, it's a true sign of our own mortality. That's the moment that you reflect. You're like, all right, well, wow, life can be here one day and really gone the next. And
Yeah.
am I really living it to the best of my experience? There's a insight timer. Sarah Blondin has this amazing meditation called "Pain Being the Gateway to the Divine."
Hmm.
Right? Because I think so often we shirk away from it because it hurts, because we think it's going to hurt. But there's so much energy inside of that pain that once it's released, there's there's a gateway that's open, right? That you can go for, you can go through that and leverage it.
Hmm. That's really great. I never heard about that, but um, no, I will say my favorite show. growing up and still today is Avatar.
Mhm.
And like one of the last episodes is one of the main characters has to deal with her mom's death. The whole show, they're always talking about it. And so this one episode is about her like confronting the man who killed her mom. And like one of the characters tells her, don't choose revenge, let your anger out and then let it go. It's exactly what you're talking about because it led to a blossoming understanding for her in a very different way. It wasn't as obvious as I forgive this person. It actually moved into another person. So it was pretty interesting. If this is why I love the show. But I just actually love that. That is so interesting.
Zane, thanks for coming on today, taking time and stopping over on the Spiritual Dope podcast.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.
Really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Spiritual Dope Podcast. Stay connected with us directly through spiritualdope.co. You can also join the discussion on Facebook, Spiritual Dope, and Instagram at spiritual_dope. If you would like to speak with us, send us an email through brandon@spiritualdope.co. And as always, thank you for cultivating your mindset and creating a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking part of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay fully up to date. Until next time, be kind to yourself and trust your intuition.